All right, everybody, welcome
Great.
back to Matt Money. So today we're diving into the ESG space, and who better to have on the show than Yazan and Mariusz. These are two very large shareholders in Aduro Clean Technologies, and I encourage you guys to look at it on the OTC markets at ACTHF. Yazan, Mariusz, thank you both for joining us today. Firstly, I want to speak on the transitioning perspective of many of these super major oil companies towards renewable, lower carbon energies, which we'll be talking a lot about today. And starting with you, Yazan, as a leader of a large family office in Vancouver, how do you see these ESG focused organizations or these smaller technology companies that contribute to some of these net zero ambitions of some of these super major oil companies going forward? Are you bullish? Do you see that this is just a small place in time? And how many of these ESG? Another question: How many of these ESG focused organizations have come to you in recent times for private placements or something of the like?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having us, and appreciate being here. Look, I think this is not a small transition. I think, unfortunately, people think of ESG as a taboo word. Sometimes they think, okay, well, are you trying to kind of greenwash my brain and get me kind of excited about something that I'm gonna wind up drinking from a paper straw?
Right, right.
And that's not the idea. We're saying that the reality is of life, the way that I've done enough research, I've spoken to enough people in at areas that are focused on ESG as well as oil and gases. I think both of them, both oil and gas and real ESG solutions, because the slogan of ESG is such a broad statement that everyone tries to kind of just stick hand or put kind of the logo of we are an ESG friendly in order to get their ESG audit check mark and move on. But I think the way forward is going to require both of these to work in tangent. I don't think oil and gas is going away, but I think there's going to be a marriage between that and the renewables on a go forward. And there's no better example than taking it from the examples that you mentioned last time and putting a name to it. So last time you mentioned that there's been a couple of transactions that happened even in 2022, which is kind of called a bad market for ESG or whatever you want to call it. In 2022, Chevron closed the transaction with Renewable Energy for a $3.1 billion. So the point I bring this, or the reason I bring this, is you were right about saying, look, I mean, the smart oil and gas companies, they want to acquire these technologies eventually once they're a bit more advanced, because it makes it's not just a check mark, it makes financial sense. And that's why we are, one of the main reasons why I loved Aduro is it was a lot of the ESG propositions that come and pitch. They're all about, okay, this is going to improve your carbon credit by X. This is going to do that. And then when it comes to the nuts and bolts of it is, are you guys ever going to make any revenue, any profit out of it? And the simple answer is you'll go in a circle, and ultimately the answer is no, unless it's subsidized by a government or subsidized by some sort of a, the company itself. We don't make money out of it. And where Aduro shines is they actually make money for both themselves and the company that is licensing the technology. So I think that is why, and that's coming from many factors. We can go through them, but significantly higher yield, 90% yield versus, 50, 60% for pyrolysis or some of the more kind of mainstream technologies out there. localized solutions, so smaller capex, lower operating expenses, and as well as a solution that does not require a massive pre-processing exercise, does not require a massive. It's not like the secret sauce is in the technology itself. It's in the chemistry, not in some very complex machine that you have to kind of build and resurrect. So, I mean, I'll wrap there with the last comment you mentioned. Do you get a lot of people that knock on your door about ESG, even this year? And I'll say, yes, there's been a lot. The problem is when you, as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to that, how do you guys make money? And I'm not saying now, because I really don't think, anyone should be investing in these companies, looking for like a quick buck. You start like, you're talking about the petrochemical exercise. So it's going to take you realistically 2 to 3 years to make real money out of it. But you have a tailwind behind you. You have in the case of plastic waste, 2025 is, right around the corner. Everyone needs to adopt technologies that will allow them to recycle, move from a 6%, that's all we recycle right now, 6%, to move to a 25% recycled product. So it's a huge lift.
Yeah.
on a 380 million tons per year. So hopefully that addresses your question.
No, it does. It does really well. And I'm curious to hear what Mariusz kind of thinks. I know he's put a lot of content out specifically around Aduro, but I'm curious from my perspective, looking at it from a super major oil company perspective and them kind of transitioning into these small transactions to them, but still multi-billion-dollar transactions. I'm curious how you see Aduro fitting into that, or other small technology companies that are assisting in that sort of sustainability and making sure that we're using everything to the most efficient manner as possible, like we will be with the HCT technology at Aduro.
What I like about Aduro is that it's not political. Okay, I think it doesn't matter what political spectrum you're on. I think everybody agrees that we have a problem. More specifically, the problem with plastic. We're all drinking, using plastic one time, and it gets, recycled where it doesn't really get recycled, and then it gets piled up in landfills or on the beaches or in the ocean. So, like, we are all aware of this, right? And the problem is so massive that if you can come across a company that has a solution or is part of being a solution in a major problem like this, I mean, the opportunity is just crazy big, and not only does it make money, like Yazan was saying, I mean, why wouldn't the oil companies want to be involved in being part of the solution? They're already getting a lot of bad rep for polluting the world and everything, and here they come being the good guys, providing a solution like this. So I mean, I could talk for hours about how beneficial this is, but from the point of view of investing in something, if you can ever be part of a major solution, and your company truly is providing that solution, I mean, the money that can be made is tremendous. And you got to be careful in a sector like the microcap sector, because I always joke about it, is that when you look at these companies on these exchanges, on the smaller exchanges, they all have a massive solutions for everything. They're disrupting everything. They have cure for cancer, for this and that, and then the next thing you know is they disrupt your wallet. But if you can truly pinpoint, and the company that you're involved in is really part of the solution, but the returns can be just tremendous.
No, I love exactly what you said there, Mariusz. It's not political; it's just good business, right? And I think that's really something that I think needs to be hit on the head with this particular opportunity. And I like what you said there. I mean, there's plenty of examples under the sun, specifically Canadian Stock Exchange, OTC market, that are microcaps, and they're going to try to sell you the world. But as we're seeing, these sorts of opportunities are getting $1 billion, $500 million buyout prices from companies because they see the potential value, they see the ability to transition them and use them for good business, right? It's not trying to greenwash, it's not trying to do anything like that. It's truly just good business and making things very efficient.
Well, and there's a reason why those companies get bought out for such amounts of money. And if you look at an investor that just, because I get this a lot today, especially with these smaller companies, an investor will come in and will look at the financial statements and make certain, this company might not have revenues, or this company is, burning cash, because they're looking at it from the point of view of a mature company. But those companies, like, people don't realize that revenues are a function of something. Revenues are a function of one company solving somebody else's problem. And if you can truly understand the problem and how somebody is going to solve the problem and why, then you can picture what kind of revenues this can bring to someone that owns this technology. That's why those companies get bought out for those massive amounts, not because they're generous and they want to, enrich the owners, that there's money behind it and they can see that potential.
Yeah, it's truly strategic, and I agree with you 100%. They're not just handing out billions of dollars for no reason. Now, I want to transition now to the company you both are both very large investors of, which is Aduro Clean Technologies. We've kind of talked and integrated some of it into the context part of the session. But this company, as you kind of alluded to, Mariusz, focuses on upcycling hard to recycle one-use plastics and allows them to be broken down into reusable oils or natural gas. So either one of you, feel free to dive deeper onto that, and what gets you most excited about this opportunity, and how strategic do you think it is in a transitioning world like we have today?
You want to take it,
Mariusz? Maybe you start and then I'll add.
Okay, well, Yazan does a very good job explaining more than just the plastic vertical. For me, I am most excited about the plastic vertical because of the things that I said, before, is that most of the people that consume plastic, they think that plastic is getting recycled. It's only when you start digging into and learning about the recycling industry, that's when you realize that this is just a bunch of hoax. Maybe 6% of plastic gets recycled, and then the 6% that gets recycled is the best type of plastic that's easy to recycle. And here we are swimming in plastic, producing more plastic. The world produces 400 million tons of plastic every year, and that number is just going up and up and up. And we are sitting in a situation where the government wants us to solve this problem. That's why they came up with the 2025 guidelines or rules that the plastic producers have to have a certain percentage of their output fully recyclable or circular economy, which means you take a plastic and you turn it back into naphtha craft, which is the source material for more plastic. So you can take a plastic bottle and turn it back into plastic bottle, or turn it into fuel. But that's plastic circularity. I mean, who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want that solution? Not only is the government wanting to solve it, but it's the producers also want to solve it. Because if you're Coca-Cola or if you're Snickers, wouldn't they want to put it on their label saying, "Hey, eat and consume our product, and don't you worry about a thing because it's fully recyclable"? I mean, that's great marketing for them.
Yeah, people will pay a premium.
Right? Yeah. They're the good guys again. I mean, they're feeding you all the bad calories, but hey, you can take the packaging and it's fully recyclable. I mean, that's what makes me the most excited about it. And so I know that there is this huge, massive problem that the world is facing. And I know that the current technologies don't even scratch the surface, because the technologies that are out there, the thermal technologies, they can only deal with the 20% of the plastic feedstock. That's it. The other 80%, nobody can touch. So they can only deal with the 20%. And those technologies, take a lot of energy. They're not profitable, and they have to build those huge facilities where you have to import plastic from overseas just to feed those beasts. And here we have a solution, the company that truly has a solution, not only for the top 20% of plastic, but for the other 80%. And you don't have to build a huge facility. You can build a small facility, so you don't have to import plastic feed from overseas. And then that facility is actually profitable. So it's not a charity exercise. So that's what makes me the most excited about this opportunity.
Yazan, I feel like there's an opportunity to either dive into specifically the bitumen opportunity, which I think Mariusz said you're very good about explaining, or we could dive into maybe the strategic partnerships. I'll let you decide and take the conversation where you see fit.
Look, I think I want to add to one comment to excitement here. The solution here, and one of the things that I really like about the Aduro is, I've not come across a company that is this size that's still underdiscovered, mispriced in terms of valuation. They own their own technology. So I'll give you an example of another one in a bit. That's $1.2 billion, which is pure cycle. They don't own their technology. They license their technology from Procter & Gamble, and they can only produce polypropylene, or they can, that's what they say. And they need the feedstock that Mariusz was talking about, which is basically the cream of the crop. They need to get the best type of feedstock that is there. And because of what Mariusz was talking about, which is all of the other technologies are going after the 20% that is kind of easier, single use, cream of the crop. What's happening now is the value of that feedstock is only going excessively expensive. So today you're going from a time where that feedstock used to be worth, say if it was at $50, now it's like $200-300 per ton. Talking about plastic waste, and people are willing to pay for that. Now the output, and this is where it becomes very interesting. The output, once you recycle it, you can actually get as high as $12,000 to $2,000 per ton. So the beauty of why I think Aduro is a very exciting exercise is it's very good socially, but it's also a profitable, endeavor, which is why, backing this company makes sense. It will make you make money, but it's also good for the environment. Now, if we take a step back as to, the broader picture, what do they have? So they have, the plastic waste, or the handling of the plastic waste, which is one of the verticals. They have upgrading heavy oil to lighter oil. And now, how oil, given your background, how the oil market is so tight. And we're, what I said earlier in this interview, I'm going to keep saying that, people that think that we're going to suddenly clip off fossil fuels, they're just not being realistic. The transition to EVs, transition to other things doesn't happen as fast as we consume. That's, that's a fact. So, in this case, having a solution that can help countries like right now what's happening is in California, you have heavy oil that, moving it requires you to kind of put the diluent, which is about 25% of that barrel. Well, Aduro's technology allows you to kind of reduce, I'm not going to say it's going to take out entirely the diluent, but let's say they can reduce it by half. One, that reduces emissions. Two, it's going to make your oil more expensive, so more valuable. And three, it's going to it's going to free up more of the pipeline when we need that in the middle of, the countries like the US are pulling out of the reserves. We can only go that far and then we're out of reserves. So we can't do that. We can't continue forever. Europe is the same problem because they need that oil. Now, suddenly what happened is if you look at a paradigm shift, you're starting to see that there's kind of opening to countries that had embargoes. So you have Colombia, Venezuela, the likes, that the US is lifting their embargoes because they need that extra oil. But again, they have one of the most difficult to move oil. So we do need that technology. And the beauty here is that it kind of parlays together because who works in the petrochemical business? The oil and gas companies that work in the petrochemical business, they're both in the oil and gas as well as in the plastics. So if they see that your solution is working on the plastic waste, and they're like, okay, well, you also have this vertical, adoption becomes smoother. And that's why it's like, looking, and that's a second vertical. Third vertical is renewable oil. There are two verticals that they don't even talk about, which are rubber tires and as well as some other verticals. Like if I continue on, it becomes like an episode of 2 hours. But the point is that just the three verticals that we talk about they have a total addressable market of over $240 billion. And that to me is something that people will look at and will want to be part of.
But talking about what Yazan said, mispricing, I hear a lot of content creators when they talk about certain companies, they'll say this company does this, they do this, wonderful looking CEO, blah blah blah. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, so what? Like, why should I listen to you? Like how do I make money here, right? And so if we just look at the most recent news that came out, that Aduro has been accepted to the game changer program with Shell. And I said previously that the world is producing 400 million tons of plastic per year. And if you start researching Shell, what their goals are, they want to recycle 1 million tons of plastic every year. That's public, that's out there. That's what their goal is. And if you just say, well, let's say if Shell becomes a client of Aduro and they decide to use this technology, how would this impact Aduro? Well, Aduro would get a licensing fee, which is the best kind of quality revenue that you can get, because somebody else Shell builds a plant, they spent whatever money they on the plant, so it's capital light for Aduro. Aduro gets a check, and it's a very high margin revenue source. And based on those numbers, it would translate to about $180 million of revenue for Aduro. And if you apply, 75% profit margin or so on 180, that would equate to about 135 million of bottom line. So now, Matt, you tell me, based on your investing experience, how much is 135 million worth per year? 135 million. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute there. I mean, easily, just to put a number out there, I mean, you slap, a 10x multiple on that, whether that's, earnings or that's just revenue, depends on what size of the company it is or whatever. But easily just thinking about that, it'd at least be worth $1 billion to me, just thinking about it,
Right.
right
So
off the top of
so
my
$1
head.
billion, right?
Yep.
From one client. One client. And what you just have pulled up on the screen is a list of top 10 polymer producers. And Shell is number 50, 51 on the list. And we're talking about one client. And we're talking about a problem that everybody needs to solve. And we're talking about a problem that there's no solution for. So you can really start crunching some numbers and get crazy excited about it, And but when you're looking at an opportunity that one client can make your company be worth $1 billion to $2 billion or whatever number you want to come up with, and the market cap is 40 or 50 million. I mean, you do the math and you're like, gee, they sign up one client, I make 20 times my money. What if they sign up 10 clients? See, so it's just, I don't think people realize the kind of opportunity that they're staring. And I would say that they're lucky, because if it wasn't for the bear market sell-off, this thing would not be sitting where it is right now, because everybody is so scared of to touch everything. And any investment opportunity that comes their way, they're like, oh, no, if I don't want to touch it. If it's too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. But they don't realize that, like, the bear market eventually will end. And Aduro signs Shell. Maybe next quarter they'll sign somebody else. And it's not because somebody else wants to make Aduro, successful and wants to make Aduro's investors, 50 times their money. No, it's because Aduro has something that they need. That's why they're signing up.
No, I think that's really, you hit two things that I kind of want to touch highly on, which is obviously the game changer program, and a lot of what I'd seen in the August presentation, which needs to be updated now because obviously the game changer program news kind of came out in the October timeframe. But just looking at that, the top line trajectory growth out to 27 was around 100 million. You use the example of one client being about 135 million. So since then, Aduro's obviously been included in the Game Changer program, and I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on how the involvement with that and the potential financing arm that comes with the Game Changer program and kind of being under their wing, to kind of, for conversation pieces sake, how do you think that that's going to accelerate that growth trajectory out to 2027? Do you think it's going to move it left? I mean, we're talking, that $100 million sort of trajectory now being in 25, and also coupling with that sort of question, how's that large step change in the R2 train getting up and running going into 2023 going to help out with Aduro?
Sure. So let me take a stab at it, and then Mariusz can take it from there. So I absolutely think that the acceptance, and having heard Abe and spoken with Abe and Ofer after they got selected in their interviews, this definitely has started putting them on the map. And as you saw, Shell has they're number 51 in the production, so they're not kind of they're way bigger producers of polymer, but Shell, given that they are a 200 billion market cap, a lot of people pay attention. So what Abe and Ofer mentioned is, since then, the number of incoming or inbound interest in the company has, gone parabolic. And, they're now in active conversation with over 14 companies in this space. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that these things can get inked every month or so, but it just means that the negotiation power of Aduro changes from prior to Shell being selected, because now you do have a kind of a big brother that it comes with a non-dilutive funding. It comes with other aspects that is gonna, and they also want you to go to commercialization. It's like part of the mandate of that game changer program. So you have a bigger brother. It's gonna probably bring that number. I know maybe it can bring it a year earlier, but it might make the number bigger. So it's also like you need to kind of, balance these two together. But the amount of people that are, knocking on the door, you know how it is. Like the first person or the first company might get some preferential treatment, second, third, but at one point, your negotiation power becomes so good that you're like, okay, well, you want this, you're gonna have to kind of, give me something better. So that's where I think, um, this could get into a parabolic valuation.
You were saying a little bit that you were involved yourself in this industry. So think about the other players like Exxon, BP, or Dow Chemical. Here they're sitting, they're looking at the problem because they're all having this problem to solve by 2025. And then they see news by Shell that they selected this unknown Aduro for the game changer program. I mean, don't you think that their departments at least would want to find out what Aduro is doing, or maybe give them a call? And so it doesn't surprise me that based on what Aduro's management is saying right now, is that their phone is ringing off the hook and then the engagement is going parabolic. It makes sense. I don't think they're lying. I think it's logical for BP or Dow or whatever the other companies are out there. It would just be natural that they would at least want to find out what this little Aduro is doing.
Yeah, no, I see that quite often. I mean, generally speaking, when one company barks, the other companies start barking as well. So I see that 100% in the industry. Yazan, do you have anything to add specifically to that piece?
Yeah, I mean, I wanna look. We have to realize something, that the trajectory here is the following. So definitely, this engagement gets an accelerator on excitement. And compared to what happened with Shell, it took like over a year or so, but now you're getting a lot of validations that happen. Western University did the third-party validation. They have their own 7 patents. It's their own IP. The value of the IP is increasing every time this is happening. Then Shell selects them. Then one of the largest chemical hubs in Europe have selected them and said, we have not seen a technology similar to that in 20, 30 years. And these companies, look, I mean, none of these, Shell, Brightlands, just so people understand, Brightlands hosts companies like SABIC, Saudi Aramco, like the who's who. They don't need Aduro. It's typically the inverse. So when they are doing their diligence on this company, same with Shell, they're being very rigorous. They're being very frugal into, do we really admit you? Do we not? We don't need you. Are you really different? And they're coming out with a statement like the PR that the one that Brightland said, we have not seen a similar technology like this in 20 to 30 years. This is not me or Mariusz trying to kind of sell, or not management trying to sell, it for what it is. This is an independent organization that their mandate is finding companies that can help with a real world problem. So I think we're gonna get the bubbling factor where a lot of these players are gonna come into play. I want to tame expectations that these things don't just happen, because it takes time kind of for someone to sign and go through the process. But I think, look, R2 Plastics is going to be live in their lab. They've already assembled it. They showed it about a couple of weeks ago. They're going to have, a 4,000 square foot lab live for people to come and see. The HPU unit, which is the heavy to light, is going to be also live there by March, April of next year. That's when, the world can come and see in action all this. And they already have 3 clients just waiting with feedstock there. And the other thing that's interesting here is that the minute they start processing that feedstock, they're actually generating revenue because they're doing the testing, and the testing is revenue generating for Aduro. So it just kind of de-risks even the investment further.
Now, I will say one more thing about the revenue, is because if you look at their investor presentation, which you mentioned, that they have certain projections of when revenue is going to start coming in, and sometimes I hear like, well, it's still a couple years out, or 2 or 3 years out, and then so therefore, we got time. We can come back to it. I personally don't think that's how it's going to play out. I don't think that it's going to be, I don't think Aduro is going to be this independent company, doing all this, generating all these revenues. I think what's going to happen, and that's just my opinion, there's going to be enough validations, enough press releases, that at some point it's going to become so obvious that somebody's going to take them out. They're going to get acquired for $1 billion, 2, 3, whatever number, just because somebody else will see that opportunity.
That's how it always happens.
I don't think that's how it, I think that's how
that's always how it happens. I mean, just I won't specifically name specific names, but some of the ones that have happened is a $4 billion deal that happened in 2022. It was as soon as they started seeing EBITDA positive results that immediately they got acquired. And of course, the multiple that got slapped on it was what it was going to produce in 2027, right? So we're talking about that large, because when you're talking about companies like this, so small of revenue base today, once they start generating that revenue, the compound annual growth rate goes through the roof, because not only do you have such a small base to start from, but people, like you said, get the fear of missing out, and they start to rush in the door, and the technology starts being implemented, whether it's nationwide, globally, or what have you. It's going to move very quickly once it starts to move. And so the thought process is when is that, right? And it seems like for you, it seems like when that really starts to get to that point is going to be sometime in 2023, where you truly start to get the clients in, whether that's, once they get the HPU up and running in March, April timeframe, May timeframe, or whether that is, towards the second half of 2023. I agree with you. Once you start to see that things are moving in the right direction, the press releases start coming, that's when it's unfortunately too late for most people, and the price is already going to start to move.
And one thing, if I may, just to kind of wrap up, I want to remind people, this company has 56 million shares out. 46%, that's the basic shares out. 46% are owned by management. That means 28 million shares is float. Just think of that, right? Like if you get 3-4 high net worth individuals or institutions that want to start, having 2, 3, 4 million shares, that changes all the entire conversation. So I think people, I get retail like to FOMO into things that are moving, but sometimes doing the work is the best time to kind of make that huge alpha. And that's why we're here.
No, very good. I guess Mariusz or Yazan, is there anything that you feel like we haven't touched, from the context to talking specifically about how Aduro fits into the ESG kind of lens, to talking about the R2 getting up and running? Is there anything that you feel like we missed before we sign off today?
I would just say to people, like, stop being paralyzed by the recession talks. Okay, interest rates going up, recession talks, just it's nonstop. You know, the biggest money is made when everybody tells you that you should just stay at home and stay in the basement and close yourself up and be safe. You know, I mean, those are the times. You know, how did it turn out for people who were adventurers in 2008, 2009? How did it turn out during the darkest hours of COVID, 2020? You know, now we're going through the same thing. And like I tell people, look, it's like, I know it's painful. I am down more money than I ever was in my life, but you know, I know how this thing is going to end. So like, look for quality companies, look for quality opportunities. The recession is going to end at some point, and people are going to get greedy at some point. And I want to be positioned, you know, and not just Aduro. I want to be positioned with good names, and reap the benefits of what's coming down the road, 2 to 3 years down the road.
Yeah, if I may add to what Mariusz is saying, I also want to say that if 2022 has been a year of all this devastation, market, especially in growth stocks and ESG and the like, and we still saw, you know, Matt, that you mentioned a couple of deals that are in the billions. I mentioned a couple of deals that are in the billions. We know of 2 private companies and so KBR invested in Mura $100 million in June of this year at a $1.3 billion US, I believe, valuation. We saw, you know, Pure Cycles a $1.2 billion company. So again, it is, if it's all, you know, in this very difficult market, and we're seeing the word B attached to other, in my opinion, inferior technologies that are, you know, unable to attack or tackle the, you know, the elephant in the room in terms of waste plastic. You know, yeah, it might be a bit of a rough few months, but do you really want to bet? You know, like, it's 40 million market cap US. It's less, actually 36. So, you know, to each his own, right?
No, I think that that's a good place to kind of put the nail in the coffin. I think it's an opportunity for folks to look into. I agree with you, Mariusz. I mean, I've been investing more capital on a monthly basis than I ever have, and I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're kind of resetting. And I think if you do see a diamond in the rough, which is 2022, then you know you have to take that opportunity. And like you said, eventually when things come out on the other side, you know, things are going to move quickly, whether that's specifically for Aduro, whether it's specifically for the market that we're talking about today. You have to be, you know, it's time in the market rather than timing the market, right? And I think this is a time where you need to consistently look at where are your opportunities, deploy that capital appropriately, because things can move quickly. And I like what you said there, Yazan, was specifically that you're in good company, whether or not, you know, you believe that this is a better technology than what we're kind of looking at elsewhere in the market. You're in good technologies that, you know, at the end of the day get evaluated in the billions. And here we are, sub 100 million in terms of a market cap. And so I think that just goes to show you, you know, coupled with what other deals have been done in the space from a super major oil technology kind of investment, or whether you're talking about specifically the private placements that you've seen, you're in good company to be looking north of $500 million market caps. And here we are sitting at less than a tenth of that today for Aduro Clean Technologies. So I think it's an interesting opportunity. I expect people to continue to do their due diligence. And Yazan and Mariusz, I hope to have you on the channel in the future, and feel free to have any last words before we sign off.
I've said what I wanted to say. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much, Matt, for having us. And we look forward to reconnecting as things develop. I think 2023 will be extremely exciting for shareholders, and I'm you know, ecstatic about it.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate both of your guys' time. I know it was good to catch up with you both, and I hope to see you on the channel again soon.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you
one.
guys. Yeah, you guys as well.
Thank you.